going to get started on our Legislative and Human Resources Committee for Tuesday, December 11th. Do we have any public comment today? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item 2, approval of the minutes from November 27th. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Moved by Commissioner Korndike, support by Commissioner Vonk. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes. On to item 3, Public Affairs Associates Legislative Update. Becky Beckler. Welcome. Thanks for making the drive.
Well, the good news is that we are in the final 2 weeks of our lame duck session. That's probably also the bad news, is that we still have 2 weeks to go with our lame duck session. So as I predicted in November before the election, I thought that this would be a very, very busy lame duck session. And it is proving true, either fortunately or unfortunately. And going back to when actually individuals began to track the number of votes in a lame duck session, you have to go back to 2008, when there were 339 final approval votes taken within a 6-day time frame, which was the in total lame duck session. We have so far taken 269 votes, and we still have 6 days to go. So we will clearly surpass that, which proves that this is a pretty aggressive session. So you've got those pieces of legislation that either term limit legislators or legislators just wanting to complete their project are trying to get those done. You've got the governor's initiatives that he's trying to get completed before he ends his final term. And then you've got everyone else's political agendas, and it's becoming quite an interesting place to be. So there are several issues that we are watching on behalf of the county. I'll run through pretty quickly for you, and then be happy to answer any questions. The Indigent Defense Commission, as you know, we continue to work on that. We have some unsettled issues. As a result of our legislative breakfast, we have worked with the Michigan Association of Counties as well as Oakland County and developed some boilerplate language that we would put in the supplemental to further encourage the commission, specifically on the 180-day rule, where the process of meeting the standards does not begin until full funding has occurred. And we are putting language in the supplemental that further strengthens that, which will help the counties in their negotiations with the commission in that effort. So we will look for that language in the supplemental. I can get a copy of that boilerplate if you'd like that for your review. The House Law and Justice Committee did approve the Raise the Age package that we've been talking about this fall. It does not have the appropriate funding for the counties, therefore we oppose the package as it currently stands. Without that funding, we're unable to support the package. It's on the House floor. Legislative leaders have indicated they do not intend to approve this before the end of the year. However, it is lame duck session, so we continue to watch it. Advocates have been outside the House chambers the past week seeking the support for the House to take this up. If the House does not take up the bill this week, it will not be able to be passed. It will not be eligible for final passage. There's a 5-day rule where each bill needs to spend at least 5 days in each chamber. So if it doesn't pass the House, it won't meet that 5-day rule in the Senate. So we'll continue to watch it. It's not on the agenda for the House today, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't sneak it on for Tuesday or Wednesday. So we'll continue to monitor that. There's a budget holdover dealing with the personal property tax. That's that overage that happens as a result of the change in the industrial property tax, and the governor continues to change that formula. We thought we had an agreement between Representative Verheulen and Senator Hildebrand on how that would look. It was supposed to happen last week in Senate Appropriations. It did not. We're hopeful that it happens before the end of the year. If not, we'll have to look at that as a carryover issue for early 2019. Tipping fees continues to be the governor's #1 priority. He continues to talk to legislators pretty aggressively about the need for raising those funds. There were actually caucuses held last week. The Senate Republicans held a caucus and the House Republicans did as well. It's my understanding that the House caucus did not go particularly well. There's not a lot of leadership as far as moving the governor's agenda forward in that caucus, so that's going to be a little bit more of a struggle. The Senate Republican caucus came up with an alternative proposal that they did submit to the governor. It's a lower tipping fee, lower phase-in. We don't know whether the governor is interested in that, but I just want to let you know that other proposals are being now distributed for review, and so that issue will continue. And I don't believe that the governor will stop advocating on behalf of moving something. PFAS. This summer, Representative Gary Howell indicated, he's chair of the Natural Resources Committee, that he would hold a hearing on the PFAS issue. He did that last week. It was testimony only by 4 individuals from state government: Carol Isaacs, Heidi Grethner from DEQ, an individual from DNR, and the state fire marshal, talking about PFAS in general. It wasn't necessarily an interactive. There weren't a lot of questions from the committee members. There will be no legislation introduced or moved in this lame duck session. It's an issue that Representative Howell has said that he wants to tackle in 2019. This was simply just an educational effort on behalf of the committee as they look to 2019. We do know that the governor has proposed PFAS funding in his portion of the supplemental. We don't know to the extent of how much, but he does advocate for more PFAS funding for testing. So we'll look for that in the final supplemental. We're also joining with the Michigan Association of Counties in supporting of a House bill that would change the tax exemption from the disabled veterans property from the counties to the state. It's something that we're working on. I know that the counties are working with the Department of Treasury to take that burden off the counties and move it toward the state. It would still be a benefit to our disabled veterans. It's just moving the cost. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to get that through the finish line. House tax policy has not scheduled a hearing. They would need to hear it this week, and it would need to come off the House floor. But we'll continue to work on that. I know MAC is working very aggressively to try to come up with a solution on that issue. Senator McGregor introduced legislation on behalf of Kent County, which eliminates the sunset on our pilot project that we have for our West Michigan Partnership for Children, which is the performance-based funding. We needed to remove that sunset. It also changes the population for the county so that we can continue to move forward, and there'll be no stoppage of services on that program. It has moved through the Senate. We anticipate that the House Appropriations Committee will take that up hopefully yet this week so we can get that onto the governor for final approval. And finally, it looks like we might have a resolution to the Large Carnivore Act. As you know, the county has struggled with the breeding of large carnivores, and it's been a struggle in the legislative process, and bills have been introduced each session only to fall short. Well, it appears that a House bill is actually on the Senate Agricultural Committee agenda that would resolve that issue, especially for the John Ball Zoo, which has struggled with its inability to breed the large carnivores in the state of Michigan. So we think that we have a resolution to that as well. So those are the specific issues. We continue to work hard on the supplemental. There is a request to our legislative leaders on the supplemental specific to the LRE to help that risk reserve. We feel good about those conversations. Of course, nothing is guaranteed until we finally see that supplemental, but the conversations that we're having are all been very positive. Representative Hewlin, Representative Daniela Garcia from Ottawa County has been very helpful, as well as Senator Hildebrand, so we'll continue to work with them. We're also working with MAC on a supplemental. They've asked for $9.9 million to hold counties harmless to a unlicensed relative provision that the state of Michigan is going to need to move forward on as a result of a federal court case, that the state will need to provide this funding. We want to make sure that counties are held harmless. So MAC has asked for $9 million in supplemental, and so we're going to be watching that as well, because I think that could have some benefits to the county as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. That was a lot in 2 minutes. Commissioner Vonk.
Thank you, Chair. Last time you were here, we talked about the tipping fees as well, and the rate ranges. It was around $4. Has that changed at all? And then percentage returning back to the locals. Do you have any idea of any of that legislation, what that might be as well?
You know, that's still very much a work in progress. It's still in negotiation. The Senate Republicans did propose a lower tipping fee, I think from the $4.44 down to $3.90 some cents. I can get you their specific proposal. They also phase it in. I'm not sure if the governor has agreed to that or willing to work with that, but I think this would definitely be a negotiation. To get the House agreed to it, I think it will have to even be a lower fee. But none of those details have been flushed out yet. That's still very much an ongoing conversation.
And nothing, you don't know how much would go back to the locals in at all, or?
I think that's still part of the negotiations. There is a slight chance that nothing happens, and they have to do something in the supplemental where they try to fund the governor's proposal through the supplemental. I know that's something that Senator Dave Hildebrand has mentioned, that this might be something that the legislature just can't agree on. But they have not come to specific terms. I think all of that is still up for negotiation. I will see if any of that detail is in the Senate Republican plan. That might give us some insight as to where they're going. So let me see if I can pull that up for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Talon.
Thank you, Chair. This morning, Becky. I don't know a lot about how the supplemental process works, but I was curious when I heard you talk about the governor's portion of the supplemental, and wasn't sure if you meant that literally. Is there like a piece of the supplemental that the governor gets to make decisions about? Can you talk a little bit more about how that works?
I'll try, because I think it's still a work in progress. So the governor started the conversation of this supplemental by adding a proposal that he put on the table for legislative leaders, as here are my priorities. And then from there, the Senate puts their priorities on the table, and the House puts their priorities on the table. I believe, as it's described by some legislators, there's a pot of money for the House, there's a pot of money for the Senate, and they all sit together and try to come to an agreement upon what they're going to support and not support. I know the framework should be put together by the end of the week. They've been meeting quite often on the supplemental legislative leaders, so it's still a work in progress, but when I referred to the governor's priorities, those are the things that he put on the table to start that conversation.
Thank you.
Commissioner Skaggs?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Becky. Two things. I'll keep it to two.
You can have three if you really need three.
Go on and on. Where to begin? Based on my reading of the legislative breakfast, I don't think that we have too much of a friendly audience at home to anticipate having a friendly audience in Lansing, but I think that we ought to make this sales tax grab by the state on the internet tax something that we at least mention, that there shouldn't pick our pockets without us at least whining a little bit about the whole thing, because, I mean, this is just, goes against promises that were clearly made in the past. There is nothing special about the internet. It's nice, but it's Macy's catalog on a computer. It is not a special sales tax and shouldn't be treated as such. I don't anticipate winning this fight, but I think it's probably worth having, especially as we talk about, raise the age, and we don't have the money, but the money is sitting right there for us to do good policy here in the county, and to take it off a formula and send it all elsewhere, despite the fact that elsewhere might be perfectly popular and useful place to spend the money. But it's, call me old-fashioned, but a promise is a promise, and it would be nice if people kept them. On the raise the age, I know that there is some back and forth on the funding mechanism, and Representative Hauerleck believes that he has a funding mechanism. Can you explain a little bit to us about why, I don't know if it's you or if it's staff, or why we feel that the mechanism that Representative Hauerleck has put forward, if it's in the bill, is not, I can't remember the exact word that you used, but would hold us revenue harmless.
Well, Representative Hauerleck has put together a proposal that even the Department of Health and Human Services believe that they are not able to implement. And in working with the Michigan Association of Counties, his solution is not necessarily a solution, but it does not appropriate enough money for county to be able to institute this policy. So it's not the policy that we have a problem with, it's just the funding mechanism that continue to snag this issue. I could get you the detail as to the exact position, but it's understanding that even the department is saying that his solution is not necessarily a solution to them, because they can't actually make it work however he has designed it.
And there's no other solution that's out there, or just, we have, what, 450 million laying around? I mean, it's there. There's just a lack of will. So, again, I would urge you on our behalf to try to bring some of this money home, because I think that in our legislative agenda, this is something that we want to do, and follow the other 45 or 46 states that don't treat 17-year-olds as adult in this one instance. And it's shocking to think that there's not the money out there to do it. So, I wish you well on our behalf.
Any other questions?
That is all.
Got one more?
No.
No? Sure? Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Becky? I just have one on that issue. Did we ever do a fiscal analysis, this might be for staff, of how much the raise the age would potentially cost our county? Do you remember?
9%, wasn't it, the increase?
4 million?
4 million.
Okay. So that would be the specific ask then, would be the $4 million. And I know we do have a lot of asks, and this is kind of a, sometimes it's tough in the appropriations process to try to budget for something that you don't know is going to happen. So that's kind of an issue. And then, of course, we would just encourage you, and I know you're already on it, but to definitely take our concerns to the incoming governor and their staff. And we do have a lot of issues with the LRE and Network 180, and we'll continue to lay those out. But seamless and as soon as you can get those to the new incoming folks, that would be great. So thanks for all your work. Appreciate it. All right. On to item 4, Probate Court Performance Measurement Review. Martha Irwin, welcome.
Good morning.
My name is Martha Irwin, and I am new to probate court. I'm your new probate court registrar. I replaced Susan Blackney in March of 2018.
Welcome to the board.
So I am new to this position, but I am not new to King County. A little history. In 1984, I passed the Michigan Bar Association, or bar exam, and practiced for 9 years until I had children. And then after staying home for 17, took the Michigan bar exam and passed in 2009 and went to work for Circuit Court George, the judge, and worked with him for 6.5 years. When he was looking at retirement, I was fortunate. He made holiday talk to me and said, how would you like to work in my office as chief deputy in the Circuit Court clerk's office? So that was a huge change, going from serving one judge to serving 14 judges, 7 referees, and handling all their cases. Then Susan Blackney, when she began talking about retirement, she and Judge Murkowski talked to me and said, you can learn. I think you would enjoy this. And I have been learning. Ever since I have been here, I have learned an amazing thing. I learned something new every day. Well, one thing I learned the very first week is that from Chief Judge Murkowski and Judge Ackert, who handles just the minor guardianships, to the probate court staff, this is a department that works just an amazing amount. They work hard, and they really serve the people of King County. So I'm going to skip right to you. I have my materials, so I'm not going to go over some of the things that we do. But everybody works hard to timely handle and fairly adjudicate all matters before the court. And our main job is to protect incapacitated individuals and to also ensure the orderly transfer of property after death. And we do all this in an accessible, person-centered venue where Kent County residents can secure a peaceful and sound resolution of their most personal matters. And every individual is treated with dignity and with respect. We are proud of our reputation for handling things timely and fairly. And as you can see, the indicators that have been set by the State Court Administrator's Office, we more than exceed every standard. We are working now to maximize the effectiveness of our staff through innovative technology. And while this sounds really great, it is difficult to get all the moving parts in place and going at the same time. Almost every document that is filed in probate court triggers some kind of a deadline. And we set ticklers so that we can follow up and make sure that follow-up work is done. And these are all set by Michigan law and court rules, but every 30 days or every year, we will get a tickler, and if it hasn't been done, we will seek out the people, have them come in, and if they don't still do it, we have show cause. We really work to minimize that. So we are working to keep in compliance with the statutes and the court rules and decrease the number of times that we bring people in for what we call a counter conference. The next step is a show cause, and finally, if they still are non-compliant, the bench warrant. But one thing that is just amazing about the staff in probate court is their philosophy. Our first question is, how can I help you? How can I help you do what you need to do? So we basically interact with customers and citizens of this county 3 ways: on the phone, in person, and by email. And we did some studies, and we are touching people almost 50,000 times during the year. We had that close contact. And you can also see that our customers are happy with our service. We've done extremely well on the customer satisfaction survey. The comments that people write are really meaningful, and this is the only department that I've ever been in where customers bring presents in and say, like, we'll have donuts one day or something delivered saying, thank you for helping me. We have forms. We provide all forms. You can come in and buy a packet and fill out the things that you need to do related to a guardianship, a conservator, a will. And we have chairs and tables, and people can sit down and then come up and ask, what does this mean? We think our forms kind of are reminiscent of IRS forms. They're just that intense. But we really work to help people fill them out. We make them all available also with explanations through Access Kent. We also work hard to facilitate the provision of professional guardians to incapacitated individuals in need. One of the best kept secrets in Kent County is the Kent County Guardianship Program. And I say it's a secret because unless you or a loved one has ever needed a guardian, you probably don't know that it is out there. The program has 43 guardians, and they serve 952 wards. And in a nutshell, they provide a public guardian whenever Judge Murkowski has determined that an individual is not able to make a decision on his own behalf, a good decision. So the probate court facilitates the provision of these guardians through this guardianship program. And we expect that this year we will be able to meet at least 85% of the requests that are turned into the program for a guardian. And the picture before was of Judge Murkowski talking to our guardians. We meet once a month, and we talk about issues and problems. We work on training to make sure paperwork is being done timely and correctly. And they all come and just come together. The judge was here explaining the best way to represent wards in his court, what you need to do to be a good advocate. Another thing that probate court does well is we systematically collect any reimbursable fees that we can. One of the requirements of probate court is to provide counsel, right, about items, and also so whenever an attorney needs to be appointed for an indigent, we need to have a way to try and reduce some of the costs. We systematically send out bills. We're maintaining this so it's not going up, even though these specific types of cases are on the increase. We managed to hold the expenses of the county.
Martha, could you pull
Yes.
the mic up just a little bit?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Very soft-spoken, so.
I'm sorry, I'm not, this is not my normal thing.
You're doing wonderful, we appreciate
Okay.
it.
So the growing caseload, it strains our staff. We have a very small staff. So the more cases we have increased filings, we have more scheduling responsibilities, and more customer contacts. Plus, we need to appoint legal counsel more often, guardians ad litem, and also now, reflecting our growing diversity in Kent County, we are locating and hiring translators on a regular basis. And that's another part of my job, which is interesting. One of our significant accomplishments is we received in 2017 the Excellence in Action Award for Collaboration, and this was the Kent County Guardianship Program. To show you, these are the people who collaborate in that. We've got the probate court, the county administrator's office, the Department of Health and Human Services, Spectrum Health Hospital and Mercy Health St. Mary's, and the Area Agency on Aging of Western Michigan. They all have a piece and a financial commitment to the program. This year, the county is budgeted to provide $167,000. This year, Senior Millage has awarded us $154,984, which is up from $135,490. The state of Michigan increased its allocation from $43,222 to $65,913, and this is due in part to they raised the rate that we have to pay the public guardians from $60 to $83 per month, which is a significant increase. There is growing pressure for us as a program to increase across the board the rate that we compensate our guardians. So we, as I mentioned before, are really working hard to do more with less, to recoup money that is spent. We set up payment plans. They can only pay a little bit at a time. We just say, keep coming, and we'll keep sending the bills until it's paid. We also located a new source of funding for the guardianship program. As I was preparing and working on the Michigan State piece of funding, I discovered that there was money allocated in the budget, the state of Michigan budget, for $1.5 million, and that was for reimbursement of court-appointed public guardians and conservator fees. Well, we have a lot of those, and as long as the ward received community mental health services, the state would pay up to 50%. So I looked and I couldn't find a lot of information online about this program. The one person who seemed to be talking about it was the lobbyist for the Michigan Guardian Association. So I joined. They had their conference in the fall here at the Amway, and I went over and I met him. And he said, hey, the money is there. You just need to ask for it. So all of the public guardians sent me lists of people who received case managed services. And we went through and we figured out that we paid 407 wards, county dollars, so that we could ask for at $60 per person. When we asked for a reimbursement of $12,150 for our fees in October. Now I call this imminent because we have not actually seen the money. However, the response wasn't like, we don't know what you're talking about. The response was, we don't have our process in place. As soon as we have it in place, we will pay retroactive to October 1. So this means that every month we're going to send a request for $12,150, give or take. People die, new wards come in. This is a huge pot of money. And we are hoping to use that money to maintain the level of commitment that the county gives, so we don't have to ever come back and ask for more from the general fund, and to also be able to raise the payment rate across the board for our guardians. Right now, different cases, if you have a nursing home case, you're paid $83 a month. But the indigent cases, we pay $60 a month. But now with the new funding from the state, they changed the APS cases to $83. So we would love to get everybody edging upward. We'd like to at least get to 70 if we can this year, and then see as the dust settles if that money will still be available next year. But I'm hoping, and I'm pretty confident that in light of the fact that it is community mental health services, that's funding that should be consistent. I guess the last thing I would just like to share with you is some of the exciting things that are going forward. We are working on document imaging, and the reason that will be so exciting is it is going to be intensely efficient from your desktop. We will scan documents in so that if somebody calls with a question, we can see it. And it's not just linked to our desktop, it will be in our on-base system, so we will be able to interface and react with the FOC, which now we photocopy and mail things. Instead, we can just click and send them to their queue, the court order that they're talking about. So it'll be time saving on both ends of the spectrum. The next thing is the automated scheduling through Access Kent. One of the ways that we schedule hearings now, people call and get a date. We are going to have these on Access Kent, the dates that are available, and we are working on figuring out with web tech how we can make the dates fall off once they're full, so that people can look and see the date and then send it in, eliminating a 1 or 2 phone call process for every scheduling date. Automated billing submissions. Right now, our public guardians submit a sheet, a worksheet, and it has all their cases listed, and it says whether it's paid by SRM, by the state, by the county, or some other fund. It's all done by hand, and then it's all entered in. If we can switch to having this done through Access Kent, then all the information will be there, and we can use it. Once it's captured, we can use it to collaborating with the state of Michigan, because one thing about having this extra funding is we can really focus our guardians on providing mental health services to their wards. The wards that we have, these are the people, this is the last resort. They have no willing or able family member or friend. Most of these are the ugliest cases. They're referred from protective services because of financial exploitation or physical abuse. They're referred from neighbors because they see people wandering on the street and they don't know what to do. And the commitment cases, there's people in hospitals that are unable to make a decision and the hospital can't discharge them. So this is one of the reasons why the hospitals are actively participating in supporting the guardianship program. Because if they have someone who needs to be placed and they don't have anybody to discharge them to, they need her. And we're trying to provide that as quickly as possible. So that we should be able to collaborate, continue this with the Kent County Guardianship Program. We need to continue adding guardians because the demand is not going down. We have both mental health and medical facilities here, so the people flock to Kent County. And once they're here, they become so we'll be able to use money from the state to hold all of these people. Working on developing better written materials and training for us, not only professional guardians, but also guardians in general, because filling out some of the forms, what are you really asking for? Well, we have a lot of written materials. People need to hear it. So we're looking at scheduling and setting up some programs and just sending out word to the people. So we will, as I mentioned, be collaborating with other county agencies to on-base more efficiently provide information and documents. It's been an amazing 9 months for me. I had no idea all this going on. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and I thank you for that. Anybody has any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. Appreciate it. Any questions? Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I want to talk a little bit more on the guardianship program. I know you reflect that almost 85% of the requested cases are taken, or at least 15% or thereabouts are not taken. Do we have enough guardians in the system? And if not, how do we get more people to do this? Because they don't have to do it on a full-time basis, do they?
No, they do not. However, we have been interviewing, and one problem we've run into is people who are willing to do it on a part-time basis may not have the financial means to pay for a bond, for instance, when they get a new case, and ultimately the ward should pay for that. But if they need to be bonded, it's kind of a chicken and egg situation. So we could use more, but that has been a problem. And I have been surprised at how many were not able to pass that minimum. We do a credit check when we find somebody that we're interested in, and we've had some issues.
So are you continuing to look for or
We
have
are
programs to
constantly
look for?
looking for,
Okay.
and we have our guardians also keeping their eye out, because if somebody says, I'm interested in what you do and I would like to do that. Now, this 15% that does not receive a guardian, some of these are cases that they've beyond burning bridges. Say they're a substance abuser and we put them somewhere, they walk away, they cause problems, they set the house on fire, things like that. And it gets to the
Yeah.
point where we, instead of just being a full guardian, we'll take them for medical only, meaning that if they end up in a hospital, we will be contacted and the guardian will be able to consent for procedures.
That's another thing I'm going to talk a little bit about, because I think, as I understand it, guardians take the cases on an optional basis. They don't have to take a case. They can opt out. So it just strikes me that the cases you talk about, because we saw that at the senior millage a little bit, the indigent cases, the tough cases, the ones that really take a lot of work, are the ones that don't get picked up. And how do we, because those are the folks that probably, as a community, we need to make sure have that.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we want to raise the fee. So the APS cases, the state has raised the fee to $83.
Right.
So that helps a little bit. But we put them out, and if nobody calls, we call and put a little bit of thumb pressure on people, like, you haven't taken a case in a while, we really need someone. So that's really all we can do at this point. Another issue with growth is we have problems supervising, giving all these guardians. I am shocked every day how much time I spend on the guardianship program. I have calls from guardians with, can I do this? Is this legal? I'm having problems with the bank. I need this. And they take priority. So we would love to have more, but we need to also have some administrative support. We are working around that problem. Some of the money that we have received from 2 hospitals, the hospitals, I should mention, fund us $50,000 per year for 3 years. Now that is up for renewal this year. Spectrum has signed the contract and recommitted for $50,000 per year for the next 3 years. We are in the final discussions with St. Mary's at this time. But there is a little bit of extra money from them that Susan was very careful with. That was our rainy day fund. So we have some money, and we have hired one of our more senior guardians to be a mentor to someone to help people getting their feet on the ground, making sure they're doing things properly. We're also sending to this woman people that are having problems, and she's assisting.
I guess I would just encourage you to look for a strategy that we can find a way to make sure that those tough cases get guardians. Because if they don't have guardians, they just become more problematic out in the community, and we just need to find a way.
And now, too, with the mental health issues that we're seeing,
Yeah.
by having someone who watches out. So we are just pretty much telling people that
Heavy-handed.
and I can say, I'm new in town, I didn't know I couldn't do that.
Well, that way you can get away with it. See?
But I think for this year, I'm going to get a little bit of grace.
Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, Martha, thank you for your work and your presentation today. Looking at your report, page 5, the second item talks about the number of mental commitment petitions processed for other counties because they were hospitalized in Kent County. The number in 16 is 1484, going up to 1745 in 17, but then you're thinking it's going to come down to 1600 in 2018. What's the reason for that? Is there some sort of a plan that you have in order to try to decrease that number?
We had at the halfway point of the year. It was slightly down.
Do you have a plan to try to decrease that number? Is there any way that we can try to not service so many out-of-county patients?
They are
in Kent
here.
County?
A lot of the people that are here, we do not provide guardians, but we do have to have the hearings, and if they have to have an attorney, we just have to do that. We don't get to count them in our SCAO statistics. They're not part of our caseload, so it's deceptive.
And we don't get any money from the other counties either, do we?
No, but then they service some of ours, but not nearly as many.
I was going to say, probably
But
not to the extent.
Not nearly as many.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know how we'd say, don't come to Kent County.
But that's probably a legislative
We looked at it.
problem that we're looking at.
We
so.
did look at it.
Anyway, but I thought there might have been a plan, or these are just raw numbers. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Ponstein?
So how often is a family guardian removed and a professional put in?
You might be surprised. These are the situations where we've had primarily financial exploitation. And I don't have a percentage, but more often than you would think. You'll get a call. They usually come in through APS, somebody who is not getting the services they need, and when they check, the money's gone. So all the money that has been coming in to support them through, whether it's Social Security or a pension, the family members all move in, live with them, and spend it. So I don't have a separate category for that. I can't tell you an exact number, but there's a surprising number of situations where there is not a family member who is suitable to serve as a guardian.
When you're dealing with an issue like that, what's driving the family member to do that? Just evil, rotten person, or just doesn't understand the law and monies that were taken out that they thought were going to go to help, worry legal?
Well, they say, I'm living with mom, so I take her car, I eat her groceries. The pension, I don't take her to the doctor or anything. I don't use her money for these kind of things. She's not on Medicaid, so I take her to the emergency room if she's sick. Some of them are just not good. And it's an easy, all move in with mom, and we're taking care of her, but they're not. Fact for me to learn, to go to a couple of these hearings in front of Judge Murkowski, and to find people who have systematically cleaned out their. In fact, one of our guardians at the last meeting reported he had a major triumph. The judge determined that someone had been stealing. They were going to file criminal charges. The prosecutor was involved, and instead they made restitution. They liquidated their IRA and paid back $68,000. And so that's a victory for that individual.
Right. Commissioner Womack?
Yes, thank you for your service, and thank you for this great presentation. As much as I know about probate court, I found a whole lot more about the great services that they are doing for the community. How do you market, define these guardians, and what is the need of guardians? And can one guardian have a caseload where is it one guardian per person, or can one guardian have like 6 or 7 people under?
Well, we have a minimum that they have to have 30 cases. And that means in a year that they are handling. The most time-intensive time is that first month or two when you're setting up to become the rep payee for Social Security, setting up bank accounts, finding placement, a safe place for them to be. So once you get everything settled, then you can turn to another new case and see. We are looking to find people that they usually approach us. I don't know if we would want to somehow reach out for some of the younger people, maybe through college recruiting. We do tell people that it is not a job that should be a primary income, because it takes a while. Once you build up a caseload, you certainly could live off of that, but it will take you a year or two to get to that point where and that would be a full-time, probably 40 to 50 ward caseload.
Do they come in with their own talent sets and career skills
Oh,
that
yes.
can help, or is there some type of training? Or
There
even
is
with
training.
those set skills, what kind of training do they go through? My
Well,
last
the first thing,
question.
we will take anybody who comes in, like, we had a lady, our most recent hire was an attorney, and she said, I'm done. Perfect. She has a great skill set because she knows how to ask questions, how to be discerning. We have a guardian monitor, so she provides a lot of training, but she also gives a mentor to each new guardian. And now we have this senior guardian who is like the boots on the ground, who once we start a new person, she will go with them. She will go and introduce them to the people at the hospital because the placement decisions often are made there. She will take them to the banks because you have to have your letters of authority. And even with letters of authority, we are getting a lot of pushbacks about, no, we don't want to let you see that money. And you're just like, or that account information, and that's difficult because we just keep sending orders. We pull people in to court on a regular basis, people from banks saying, why are you not doing that, and then fine them. But we try and train them. We also have a manual, and both Sue Cook, our guardian monitor, and myself, we are available by phone all the time.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Keep up the good work.
Any other questions for Martha? All right, seeing none, thank you for your presentation. We really appreciate it. All right, on to item 5, Board of Commissioners appointments in various boards, commissions, and committees. If you want to read this, but then I have some comments to make before we proceed.
This is a request to the board for various appointments to boards, commissions, and committees for 2019. The Board of Commissioners on an annual basis appoints county residents and commissioner boards, commissions, and committees in accordance with applicable statutes and on standing rules, board standing rules. Interest in serving on the various boards and committees was solicited via www.accesskent.com. 140 applications were received for 55 vacancies, 3 interview teams consisting of Commissioner Bolter, Coleman, and Womack, Commissioner Steck, Ponstein, and Skaggs, Commissioner Korndike, Telling, and Vonk reviewed all resumes and conducted interviews of citizen participants, applicants for the various agencies. The recommended nominees to fill the vacancies are noted on the appointed board, commissions, and committees listing.
All right, I'm going to take a motion in a second, and then I have a couple comments to make before we proceed. Do I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Vonk, support by Commissioner Womack. I just want to say that this process, I really would like us to really focus and improve on moving forward. For me, and maybe it was just, because we had a lot of different moving parts, but it's really tough that we only kind of post these for a month, hurry up and get all the applications, get a binder quickly, and then we just really don't have, in my opinion, enough time to really focus on all the candidates, the boards as a whole. Sometimes we only get the vacancies and we can't look at the whole board makeup. So moving forward, I'm going to highly encourage Commissioner Steck and staff to maybe pull this process up a bit and make it give us a little bit more time. I also think most people that are working in the community and busy with their kids, or they're taking care of a parent or any other things, aren't, looking at our website all the time to know that the posting's up. We may need to recruit people in our community because maybe they don't know when a posting is up on a commission or a board. I think we just need to be a lot more intentional in making sure that we're getting the best folks for some of these boards. So having said that, because this moved so quickly, I do have one amendment on the third page under the Veteran Service Committee. We do need to put Commissioner Harold Mast back in there. We didn't realize he wanted to come off. Commissioner Steck?
So I think now we have to do a motion to amend, because we did motion to approve this, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I will move to amend the motion to change with respect to the Veteran Service Committee, identifying Harold Mast as the recommended appointee.
Okay, do I have a second?
Support.
Support by Commissioner Coleman. All in favor of that?
Well, I'm a little unclear. Who are we taking off then?
We're going to remove Josh Lunger. Remember, we were at the
Oh, I remember.
Yeah, and so we were just great. I think we didn't realize Harold wanted to stay back on. So when we were at our caucus, Josh was there, and we kind of
Right. Oh, I remember. I just didn't
quickly
hear a
recruited
name
him.
about which one.
So sorry about that. So it would be, he was going to fill Harold's expired term, but we didn't realize Harold wanted to stay on. So we would amend that to keep Harold on. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So, opposed? All right, that motion passes. So we have amended that. So now we're back to the original listing, or the amended listing. And we have a motion and a second, so we can take our vote on that, correct? Yes. All in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Talon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I want to raise this with some hesitation because of my great respect for my colleague, Matt. But I was quite surprised to see someone who, in my recollection, has not voted to support any any PDR proposals being appointed to the Ag Preservation Board. So I wanted to ask, what was the thinking of the subcommittee
I have
when they
some
made
thinking
that?
on it. I do have some thinking on it. Yeah, so I do, again, want to take some deeper dives into these boards. That is one of them. Network 180, we all know, has to do a deeper dive. I really think that specific board, we need to pull up and look at what are all the options for ag preservation, not just PDR, and make sure that that board is looking at all options and pursuing all options for ag preservation. And so Commissioner Coleman has committed that he will work with everyone on that committee and look at our agribusiness report that we did, make sure we're pursuing all of those options. I think PDR probably will remain an important component of that board on what they want to focus on, but it's not the PDR board, it's the Ag Preservation Board. And I think that we need to make sure we're looking at every option that we have. So that is why we're supporting him for that committee.
So I guess I would, again, I'm hesitant about this, but Madam Chair, have you actually looked at the PDR ordinance? I mean, my understanding over the years is that the Ag Preservation Board's sole responsibility is managing the PDR program. So this is the first time that I've heard that the Ag Board has responsibilities other than that.
I'm not suggesting that they do have these responsibilities. I'm suggesting that we need to look at that, and we need to make sure that, my concern is that other options or other, intentions or plans aren't being pursued because we're only focused on one option. And I think ag is very important. I represent an agriculture community. I would really like us to start looking at what are all our options and making sure we're intentionally pursuing those, not just one option. So that's my concern and that's my hope. Does that make sense?
That's a pretty significant change in what that program is that this board hasn't talked about. So I guess
right, but we're only putting one person on the. Today we're just talking about putting one person on the board.
But we have had other people that did express interest.
Correct.
And so we're choosing someone who doesn't support the PDR program. I really struggle with this appointment.
Okay. I'm also trying to choose someone who represents an agriculture community in their district. So that was a concern of mine as well.
If I could just follow up.
Sure.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I really can't. This is all new. I'm really surprised at this, and I really can't support this, so I guess I'm going to have to vote no.
It's just one person on the board, but okay. Commissioner Skaggs.
Yeah, with all due respect to my colleague from Byron Center, I just can't see this as the best fit for his talents and his beliefs, which I think are heartfelt and probably represent the people of Byron Center from what I can tell. But I don't believe that they're representative of the rest of the board. I mean, we just recently had a vote at our last meeting that was 1-18 on accepting free money to do an ag preservation deed on a PDR. This is the only thing that the board is currently doing. And so I think that to put someone who has a belief that is contrary to the existing intention of the Agricultural Preservation Board, I can't see it being a particularly good fit, especially since we had another commissioner with a farming background who was not opposed to the core action of the board, so I guess I would make an amendment that we change the appointment from Commissioner Coleman to Commissioner-elect Sparks.
Support that motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Have any conversation on those motions? Sure.
Just one more comment. It strikes me that we probably would not appoint someone to the Community Health Advisory Committee who does not believe in immunizing children. To me, this is somewhat similar, that we're appointing someone to the Ag Preservation Board, which is responsible for administering the PDR program, who doesn't support the PDR program. So I'm speaking in favor of the motion to appoint someone else.
Okay. Do I have any other comments or questions on the motion? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. I guess this is, I mean, if the criteria of the Ag Preservation Board is you have to support PDR, I would suggest that we look over the past 10, 12 years. You'll find a lot of the appointments were not pro-PDR. And to signal out the county commissioner for just his beliefs, I mean, I disagree with Matt, but I still respect his ethics as a commissioner, his well-thought-out process on coming to those decisions. I just think it's dangerous at this type of the game that we can just pull people off. I mean, I guess people could look at the two committees I sit on and say that, you know, he's really not qualified. I think that's a broad statement. It's a dangerous statement. And I've just looked at Matt as a whole, and for the most part, he does research the topic, and his decisions, when he does make it, are well thought out. So I don't see where it's going to hurt having a commissioner with those viewpoints on that commission. It may help Matt look at the other side a little bit different, and may not. But at the end of the day, it's a commissioner appointment that I hope that the commissioner's on there to kind of represent the full commission on that. So.
Commissioner Korndike.
Thank you, Chair. So when I first came to this board in 2001, I had opposed the senior millage. And the first thing they did was throw me on the senior millage review committee. And I changed my mind. So I think saying Matt doesn't have an open mind to do the work, which I did the work for 6 years on that review committee, and I did change my mind. So I think it might be even an opportunity for Matt to see the other side and perhaps, you know, change his view on PDR. I don't know. But allowing a commissioner to go on a board or a committee that they don't necessarily support, I don't think is always a bad thing. Thank you, Chair.
Did you, Commissioner Steck?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, I appreciate the potential Commissioner Korndike raises. I guess I don't see the appointment of Commissioner Coleman as an attempt to educate him and get him right-sided. I do, though, believe that he has indicated his willingness and interest in serving on this board, and that he brings to that board an ability, a skill set, and an openness to pursuing the best interests of the county. Now, I appreciate that that newly elected Commissioner Sparks is potentially also interested in that. I really don't know what her background or thought or perspective on it would be. And I'm not sure that that would be predictive of how I'd vote on this. It seems to me at this point I have two individuals who apparently are interested in doing it. Commissioner Coleman is more senior and has expressed an interest in doing that. So I would support his request to go ahead and serve. Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Skaggs?
No, I don't think that it's particularly dangerous what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is trying to have an appointment to a board of someone that doesn't have an opinion that represents about 5% of this board, and whether or not that is the best fit for their talents. And I guess I would agree with Commissioner Steck that perhaps it shouldn't be, it's not a particularly well thought out policy to appoint people who oppose the goal of the board to the board in hopes that they will change their mind on things. I mean, We don't appoint people who are opposed to flight to the airport board. So I just think that this is a
Talk
very...
to Commissioner Morgan on that.
I just think, I'll just go on, I just think that the point here is very simple. This board does one thing, and I look forward to the chair's discussions, and obviously from the email we got from Administrator Britt, that we're going to think in broader terms on this issue. But for now, this board is only about purchase of development rights, and I just think that we ought to have someone that actually believes in the program there. And I also believe that Byron Center is not a township that's engaged in the PDR program at all. I think they've opted out of it. So again, I think there are lots of others who would be better fits. To answer Commissioner Steck's question, from the brief discussion that I had with Commissioner-elect Sparks, she's a partial owner of a farm in another county and has some agricultural background. And I just think that in this one case, that it makes sense that we reconsider this and appoint someone who is more in line with the vast majority of the board on this issue.
Okay, any other comments? Commissioner Bonk.
Thank you, Chair. I've been serving on this committee for the most part of 18 years, and I've never seen this done before. Dave Moran, paintings right over here, he said these are political appointments. Now, we don't give litmus tests. We all serve on different boards. Some we have more interest in than others, but I've never seen it being problematic in the 18 years that I've been here. And all the commissioners have done a good job, a responsible job. They're responsible to the voters of their district and to the county. And I've never seen that fail yet. Could they have done better? Maybe. I could say that about the committees and boards I've been on as well. So I appreciate anybody that's willing to serve, and I trust what any one of these commissioners does and whatever they bring forward. I trust, my question, respect but verify. Yeah, we can do that. And you do it yourself after you leave a meeting. Wow, what about that? Did I vote the right way? What about this? Maybe I should rethink this. So I think Matt would do a fine job. I trust him. He's one of the guys we passed the torch to, and distrust is a bad thing to start having on a board, and then pretty soon we'll all distrust everyone. So I like to keep it positive and go forward.
Commissioner Talon, did you have additional comments?
Yes, thank you, Chair. First, I want to just clarify that, number one, I don't distrust my colleague. Number two, I don't consider him dangerous, either personally or on the Ag Preservation Board. I am concerned about the process of getting to where we are here. And I didn't see either of the candidates we're talking about, either in the amendment or the original proposal, in our resume binder. So I'm not sure how they came. I did attend the caucus meeting, and my sense was that this was not reviewed by the subcommittee. It was not a recommendation of the subcommittee, and it felt like it happened fairly haphazardly, in my view, at the caucus, and that's where the recommendation comes from. I am in wholehearted support of your desire to relook at this process, to continue to improve it, and to me, this is an area that really can look at some additional improvements as far as the process goes. Thank you.
There's one statement I agree with you on, Commissioner Talon. Just to address the caucus, I do think you'll remember that I think I used the quote, "We'll put a pin in this one," and I did have conversations with both Commissioner-elect Sparks and Commissioner Coleman. I discussed kind of moving forward some options and some potential plans, and this was the call that was made. Again, Commissioner Coleman represents an agriculture community. Commissioner-elect Sparks does not have agriculture in her potential district, nor has she served on the board yet. She's new. We're trying to, kind of assess what she would like to do. So this is not ill intent. This is not some sort of political, gamesmanship. I come from an agriculture community. I love our agriculture community, and I represent an agriculture community. And I think this board needs to start doing a better job of looking at other ways and innovative ways of addressing the needs of the agriculture community besides just PDR. That may not be the current situation, but I think moving forward, that needs to be looked at. We're not gaining anything by just focusing on one issue. So that's my hope. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. But I think we need to try to be optimistic. I think we need to be innovative. I think Commissioner Coleman brings that to the table, and that's why I think he is the best person for the job. So on the motion of amending Commissioner Coleman to Commissioner-elect Sparks, do I need a roll call vote for this? Do I need a motion for a roll call vote? Okay, we will have a roll call vote on amending the motion to change Commissioner Coleman to Commissioner Sparks.
Just for clarity, a yes vote will be to approve the amendment, a no vote will be to reject the amendment.
Commissioner Womack?
Abstain.
Commissioner Coleman?
No.
Commissioner Talon?
Yes.
Commissioner Vonk?
No.
Commissioner Steck?
No?
Commissioner Korndike?
No.
Commissioner Ponstein?
No.
Commissioner Skaggs?
Yes.
Chair Bolter?
No.
2 yeses, 6 noes, and 1 abstain.
All right, the motion does not pass. Now we are back to the original motion and second of the entire list. Do we need to do a roll call for this? Assuming we do.
You can. It's up to you. It's up to you.
Okay, so back to the original motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, motion passes. All right. We are moving on to Commissioner Miscellaneous, item 6 of the agenda. Do I have miscellaneous today? Commissioner Ponstein.
Thank you, Chair Bolter. So that was an interesting discussion, but yeah, the appointment process, I think, is one of the most important things we do, and it is flawed. It's greatly flawed, especially at this level of government, every government level above it. It's political, and political choices don't always put the best people in the right spot at the right time. But it's what we're working with now, and hopefully it is something we can work on, because I see this board is going to be closer politically than we've been in a while, and it's going to be important that we try to balance that out. I did have a chance to respond to Becky, but she had mentioned the John Ball Zoo issue. I got a couple calls from a couple Grand Traverse county commissioners who put the time in when they were advocating for other things for counties, that they also advocated for Kent County and got positive responses from them. Even if this does pass the Senate, doesn't mean that it's done. It is both the House and the Senate have passed this before, to only see Governor Snyder not sign it. So if it does go through, just keep in mind, if you call Governor Snyder, you're going to get a voicemail. Just leave a brief message on, the importance of that to the zoo. I just want to remind you once again that someone from all 83 counties visited that zoo, and someone from all 50 states visited that zoo this past year.
Thank you, Commissioner Ponstein. Any other miscellaneous today? Commissioner Womack.
Well, my miscellaneous may kind of fit in here, so bear with me. I'm coming off the agricultural board, and when I went on it, I didn't even want to be on it. I didn't even know how I got on that board. I didn't feel one way or the other, except I felt it was a punishment. and that I felt that's where you put the rookies. So I said, okay. But I learned a lot. I switched a lot of my opinions, and I felt it was the best board for me to be on coming in, because if I'm going to represent the whole county, it's not just my experiences in the urban area. I have to understand this whole county, so it was a great thing for me. I abstained today just because I wasn't really educated on the whole situation of these two candidates for that, and I just wanted to be fair and not come out biased against my colleague, and even though I do understand exactly where the other commissioners were coming from, because I'm sure there's people looked at me when I got on that board like what he's doing on it, but also I look so forward to working with Mrs. Sparks. I've known her for a lot of the great things she's done in the community, and I look forward to talking to her before she comes on the board, because I do think there's a lot of other committees where I think she still will do great, and especially for the people of Wyoming and Kentwood that she's representing. And I just hope that we can bring in the new year. We're going to have some battles, of course, but I hope we can bring in the new year very united. I'm very happy to be on this board, and I just want to commend all the commissioners, all our heads of departments, our sheriff's department. This has been a year for once that everyone in my community knows what Kent County is, for better or worse, but I know it's going to be for better in 2019, and I just want to take this opportunity as we get closer to the end of the year to just say, I think I've served on one of the finest Kent County Commission boards. I say that prejudicial because I wasn't on the older, the ones in the past, but I respect every member of this board, and I just want to, as we head to the end of the year, just once again, thank you all for being my colleagues.
Commissioner Steck.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to acknowledge the challenge to go ahead and take a hard look at this process that we've just undertaken here, and we'll be continuing to do that year after year after year. I think that Commissioner Ponstein and I sat together in one of the strategic planning sessions, and both of us identified this as being an activity that we need to put some more energy and some strategic thinking into. I accept the integrity of my colleagues who voted for a change or amendment on this process today. I think those are fair considerations. They ought to be raised, but I think as a whole we do need to take a hard look at how we do this process and how we engage our community. We struggle, seems to me, every year on finding the right people to sit on these boards, finding enough people to step forward and participate. And then, of course, how do we staff them? So I'll take that challenge, and we'll see what we can do this coming year.
Thank you. Any other Commissioner Miscellaneous? Commissioner Taylor?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Recognizing that this is probably your last meeting as chair of this committee, I would like to express my appreciation for your leadership, and especially for your tolerance of all of my questions, which I tend to have a lot of them, and thank you for putting up with that.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Coleman.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I didn't expect today's meeting to be quite so interesting. So I appreciate that. I appreciate all of my colleagues who have concerns and also words of support for this Ag Preservation Board position, and I would have preferred finding out ahead of time that I was signing up for punishment, but thank you all.
All right, and I just will wrap that up with, again, I really hope that we can pull this process out a bit, take some more time, be way more intentional. I also would really encourage, board members to go to some of these meetings. I will be going to an ag preservation meeting. I will be doing these things just to kind of see how is it functioning, take a deeper dive, make sure that they're getting what they need from us on our end. I just think that's important. These folks are representing people that we represent, that elected us to be here. So it is very important that we are taking it very seriously, not rushing. There are some committees we still need to fill, and I made the decision that I would rather take some time on this and make sure we're getting the right people. And so that was my decision. I guess hopefully it goes well, but I'm hoping it goes well, and we'll move forward. So I have enjoyed my time on the Legislative Committee. I appreciate you all for allowing me to chair, and Commissioner Talon, I always balance your questions with Commissioner Vonk wanting to get out sooner rather than later. So having said that, we are adjourned.
Nice, nice.
I'm going to start taking notes of